morning, ETEC. Amazing how that all happened. Good morning, welcome to the 2021 meeting of ETEC. Here it is, February 4th, 2022. We're having our annual meeting. A little late, and thank you to everybody for coming, taking your time out of your busy schedule. And I'm Buddy Hines, Chair of the Board of Directors for ETEC, and really appreciate you coming. First of all, I want to thank the sponsors. I see all these tables here, but Acato Information Services, Acato Information Management, Boston Government Services, Cadre 5, Energy Solutions, Fluor, Gym Technologies, Kairos Power, Key Logic, Materials and Chemistry Laboratory, Barry. Can't see you. Never miss this, good work. Merritt Construction, Navarro, ORUD, Pinnacle Financial Partners, ProToServe, Retirement Planning Services, TVA, UCOR, and Verizon. Please join me in thanking these sponsors. Chris, you need to lead us in invitation. That we've already eaten, but you can still bless me through.
Well, good morning, everybody. What an honor to get to be here and to see all of you in person. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, absolutely. You know, it's been so great getting to talk to so many of you in the room, with so many others that I hope to after we're finished, and just to see so many friends here and so many great folks who support the work of higher education, of course, particularly Roane State Community College. We see so many partners that allow us to collaborate together. We're so thankful for you. So many of you who passionately advocate for the work of higher education. And we are so grateful. I want to say a public thank you to all of you, and a particular public thank you to our elected officials. Without your work, we simply cannot do what we do. So thank you all. I invite you to join me in prayer. Father, we bless your name, and we thank you for this gathering of friends, Lord. It is so wonderful to be able to be together, to smile, to laugh, to reconnect, God, because it has been such a difficult last few months, and the difficulties in so many ways continue. But Lord, your blessings and your strength bring us through, and we are so grateful. We want to pause and make sure that we give you thanks for that. I'm so overwhelmed, Lord, by the hearts of the individuals who are here in this room, and the hearts of all those that they work with and the companies that they represent, because behind each person, Lord, I see a heart of passion to make the community better, to make the region better, to make the lives of individuals better, Lord. And that means that these folks all have a heart, Lord, to think of others before themselves, to love others, Lord, with a sacrificial way that they give themselves to make the world better. And that's, in fact, what you called us to do, Lord, is to live our lives for other people. And so we thank you for that opportunity. I thank you for these people. I pray your blessings on the food we have eaten. I pray your blessings on each of their families. And Lord, we just want to say again how great it is to be here together, and thank you for this gathering. I pray that it all honors you, and I always pray, Lord, in the name of my Savior Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Oh, very good, Chris. No notes or anything. We're going to move right into the program, and we've got a lot of reasons to celebrate. You know, that's why we're here. It's really great to have Senator Alexander here with us. Thank you for coming. We appreciate all you've done for us over the years. And also want to thank and honored to have Governor Randy McNally here this morning. Thank you. Seen a lot of other congressional staffers here with us today. We are truly grateful for all the pick and shovel work you guys do in our region, and we do appreciate what you do for us. Before we do want to talk about a few things we have to celebrate. You know, you don't have to. You look at the evening news and you think, man, we're in a pretty good situation here in East Tennessee. I think we're all grateful to be here, and I think most of us realize it. But It's been a full year. Starting, we were fully remote at ETEC, and we gradually moved to in-person hybrid meetings. And of course, today we're all in person. If you're at home, you can't see this wonderful program. But so thankful for that. There's some challenges. Early last year, there's a proposal to put a motorsports park in Oak Ridge. I think ETEC participated in some collaborative efforts to try to bring all parties together. It didn't work, and the lab made some changes in its procurement policies. ETEC was instrumental, I think, in working with the small businesses who had a lot of unease about going forward, and I think we were instrumental in bridging some gaps there. We started talking about innovation districts last year, and we had a speaker from Switzerland come in and tell us about how other people are doing it, and I think we can learn from that. ORNL, UT, TVA joined together to create Techstars. I saw Trish here. Thank you for coming. A lot of exciting things are going to happen with that, and very soon I think there'll be some companies being announced that they're working with. Advanced manufacturing continues to attract startup opportunities in our area. Venture capital is pouring money into those, and there's a whole lot more to come on that. ETEC, working with the Fusion Industry Association, hosted our first Fusion Innovation Forum virtually. About 100 people showed up at that from 6 foreign countries, and one of those, General Fusion of Vancouver, Canada, moved to Oak Ridge and is already setting up shop. Kairos Power and Ultra Safe Nuclear Corporation purchased land at ETTP and are working on deploying new products for the nuclear industry from Oak Ridge. TVA's Clinch River site has gained the NRC license and ready for a small reactor project, which is a big deal. Y12CNS and the Roma Alliance are building a major training facility in the western portion of the DOE's reservation, emergency training facility, and it's going to bring over hundreds of visitors training for safety issues across the country. ETEC, working with Howard Baker Center at UT, published the 5th study of the DOE's economic impact on the state of Tennessee. The numbers show, how much East Tennessee, the lab, and other industries bring to the area. There was a 25% growth in the impact number, $7.2 billion total impact. That's 43,000 jobs. Think about that a second. From all over East Tennessee. $1 billion spent in procurement to East Tennessee companies. Lastly, maybe the biggest news of the day, Jim Campbell's retiring. After 26 years at the helm of ETEC. He's going to be a grandfather in a few weeks. How about that? That's going to be great. I think he's planning to spend time with the family, going to be doing some writing, which I think is his favorite pastime besides fly fishing and loaning. But we'll be looking forward in a couple of years to seeing the products of those labors. He'll be leaving an impact that'd be hard to follow. The influence and the of ETEC has grown over the years, and really Jim is the primary person to thank for all that. So Jim, thank you. We're going to have a little retirement event on March 30th. More to come on that, so there will be some opportunities to roast and toast. So please be sure to make a few notes and do your best Jim Campbell stories. So with that, I appreciate everybody coming, and I'm going to ask Alan Eisenhower to come up and introduce our speaker. Alan.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, ETEC.
Morning.
Great to see everybody, to see so many friends here this morning. But I have to tell you, we have a mystery on our hands. Because a few weeks ago, when I was asked to introduce our distinguished speaker, I found out it was Alan. But then I've known Adam for many years, and I thought, well, this is easy. But just to be sure, for somebody that has had such a long and distinguished career of service to our nation, I wanted to make sure I introduced him properly. And I've got a great staff to help me. And I've reached out to make sure I covered everything. So I reached out to get his resume. That great staff could not find his resume, so we've got a mystery here. So first of all, I'll just introduce him based on the standard biography, and then maybe we'll talk about the mystery just a little bit. So Adam leads GE Hitachi's domestic and international government affairs. He joined from Oak Ridge National Laboratory very recently, where he served as the Director of Federal Affairs. Before that, he was a professional staff member for the U.S. Senate Committee on Appropriations, overseeing a portfolio including nuclear energy and national security funding for the Department of Energy. We'll have to ask our senator to rate him on that performance. Adam started his career at U.S. Naval Reactors, so he and I have a shared heritage of service in that area. And he served in roles over nearly 20 years that include engineering and program management, budgeting, acquisition, and federal affairs. And he has a bachelor's degree in nuclear engineering, so another shared heritage, from RPI. So now back to the mystery. And since my staff couldn't help me, I reached out to other contacts to find out a little bit and get the whole story around this. So if you'll indulge me, I'll reveal a little bit about the mystery of the resume. So the year Adam retired from Naval Reactors, he started his own consulting firm and stopped by the Senate Energy and Water Subcommittee to give out his card and to let them know of his new plans. The Senate had just flipped from a Democratic majority to a Republican majority. And the subcommittee needed to hire to fill the staffing slot. So he's asked whether he knew anyone who would be interested in the national defense portfolio. He said, I do know someone. Me. He was asked to submit his resume as soon as he could because they were interviewing him. This may be one of the few moments in his life when Adam was not prepared. He didn't have a resume. In fact, he'd never written a resume. So on his way home, he called his former deputy at Naval Research and asked her if she had a resume. She asked him if he had found her a job. And he said, no, I have found me a job. So she sent a resume so he could use it as an example. He used her resume as more than an example, but it was all true. He figured that since he had supervised her, her resume would be the same as his. Except that he just changed all of her I had responsibility for to I supervise. So he quickly submitted his resume to the subcommittee, and he got the job. You know the rest of that story. It's been very beneficial for all of us. After he was hired, the subcommittee clerk called him into his office and told him the gig was up and that he knew he had copied his resume and that the clerk had been hired to keep an eye on him. It was apparently Adam's membership in the Association of Female Broadcasters. So, my good friends here at ETEC, please join me in welcoming my really good friend, I hope still, and a distinguished member of the Association of Female Broadcasters.
I'm going to set a timer so I don't run too far off because I can ramble. First of all, thank you, Alan, my good friend, for the intro. I won't even say I'd like to tell you it's untrue because one, I wouldn't, and two, it's true. You know, But I would tell it slightly differently. There is one embellishment in there. I did catch that female broadcaster, and I did delete it, okay? But I didn't say I supervised. I said oversees and directs. Okay, that's the first part. The moral of this story is work harder, work smarter, not harder. Okay? Now that story was out in some circles, and by the time I left Capitol Hill and I joined Oak Ridge, it was still, people knew that. I used the same resume. And when I left Oak Ridge and went to GE Hitachi, I still used the same resume. Now the other part that's kind of funny is when this story first came out in a public way was at a big conference for environmental management. And the person whose resume I used was literally sitting about where Alan is while I was speaking. And I forget the context in which it came up. I pointed out and I said, and she's here today. And I looked at her. And so I think she still doesn't quite forgive me. But the resume is a good one. And it's so good that it's gotten 2 people that same job on Capitol Hill. So she's there now. Which means in another 5 years or so, she'll come work at Oak Ridge and then she'll replace me at GE Hitachi. So, and hopefully she'll pass it on to others and we can start sort of a chain. I did want to follow up on a statement from the invocation where you thanked our elected officials. I can't echo that enough. I was at a dinner on Wednesday with some folks on Capitol Hill, including some members of Congress, and one of the things we talked about is it's getting harder and harder and harder to do the right thing when you know what the right thing is to do, but you know you're going to be punished for it politically, right? And that's sort of a perfect thing to talk about with who I really think is our guest of honor today, which is Senator Alexander. I did write notes to keep me on track, and I failed right on the very beginning because this isn't on my notes, but I want to share a story about my first week working for Senator Alexander on Capitol Hill. We were in a meeting, and I forget the topic and the specifics, but one of the staffers had presented an idea. Senator so-and-so wants us to sign up on his bill. Here's what the bill does. Here's what it's about. Here's who else supports it, etc. And the senator listened. And then he said, okay, well, what are the principles at play here? And so again, I always consider anyone older than me as old and younger than me as young, but I'm getting older. And I'm like, I've been around for a while. I've had a lot of bosses. I've worked in a lot of places. I've never been in a workplace where somebody says, we're about to make a decision. Let's start out with the principles, right? It may be in the back of our minds sometimes for some people, but it's certainly not in the fore for everybody. And that was the very first thing he said is, what are the principles we're talking about here? And the staff said, well, on one hand it's this, and on the other hand it's this. And we had a discussion about how those principles play, and then he made a decision. Like I talk with my children about values and using values to make decisions. But most people don't bring that to work, even people that talk about values at home, right? And so that struck me it was like my second day on the job, but my first day of meeting with the senator. And that struck me, and I said, wow, that's not what you expect. And it's also not what you think about when you think about, all the bad press that government gets, all the bad press that people on Capitol Hill get. But it was phenomenal. And then as I reflect upon it, the thing I think that is even more, it blows my mind, is we talk about the level of influence that you have, Senator, and that you've had. And in my mind, it's limitless because I think about, that room had 50 people in it. And as those on Capitol Hill, people tend not to stick around very long. The fact that I was there for 6 years, I think was a long time. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Alexander people running around in various places. There are a bunch of them in this room. I don't go to a meeting often on Capitol Hill. There isn't one there or nearby. Everything I'm going to talk about today is largely enabled by that and working with other people that have worked with you. So I personally want to thank you in front of all these people for that. I do want to thank Jim, even though I heard he was getting fired in March. They finally caught up with you. But we're in good hands with Tracy and Nicole, and I want to thank all of you for putting on this event. I know that things like this are not easy, not because I've ever done one, but I've watched closely enough to know that it's torture. And the fact that, you know, the fact that you convinced this many people to pay to come have breakfast and listen to me, you got magic. So thank you for that. And it's important, right? The work that, it's kind of understated. We were at dinner last night and someone was talking about a business venture that they're engaged in right now that's doing, you know, doing some good things, and that his connections for that all came through ETEC, right? So if you go back and if you were able to list the things, the little connections that happen, the people that get, you know, all the things that you can convene, the stuff that happens on the sideline, where most of the work happens anyway, right? If you wrote those on the wall, it'd have to be a pretty big wall. So thank you for that, and thank you for this event today. Let's see, I'll start out with a little bit of an intro about my new company, because a lot of people I think don't know about, you know, they know about General Electric and they think about light bulbs and, you know, things like that, but General Electric has a nuclear business, obviously. It's called GE Hitachi, and folks often go, oh, that's a foreign company. No, it's not. It is General Electric, and we have a joint venture with Hitachi, which is a Japanese company, so it's a US company with a joint venture. When I think about nuclear, and this is again largely shaped by the way we talked about it when I worked for Senator Alexander, we always talked about the base load. What do we have today, right? We're just under, 19% or so, almost 20% of our electricity in this country. And we talked a lot about the need to impact climate in a positive way, or at least stop impacting it in a negative way. And so the very first thing you have to do is you have to maintain what you have. Well, that's something that my company does. We make fuel. For the Navy guys in here, this will hurt your head, but we make control rods because we replace control rods in the civilian world. But we make components, we do services, we do outages, we do refuelings, all of those things. And so the role we play there is, obviously, we try to do the best we can to keep the cost down, because the more we keep the cost down, the longer we keep those nuclear plants, right? And that's important, one, for today, generation, and doing it in a carbon-free way. But it's also important because we've got to bridge from where we are now to where we need to go in the future. And where we need to go in the future if we're going to solve the climate problem is we need more nuclear power, right? Every source of energy has its challenges. Every source of energy's waste has its challenges, quite frankly. You know, so we have to be mindful of that, and we have to work towards solutions. But at the end of the day, if we're gonna march our way out of this climate challenge, nuclear power will be part of it. That's a simple fact as far as I'm concerned. So along those lines, you know, we have plans for, I'll say near-term generation and mid-term generation, right? So the near-term one I'll talk more in detail about, but we have a boiling water reactor. It's relatively small. It's 300 megawatts. That's about the size of a coal plant. It was designed that way and that size for a reason. We didn't make any great reaches in technology. It's pretty simple. You know, sometimes I say it's the boring reactor, because quite frankly it is. It uses technologies we already have. It uses components we already have. The fuel is already in production, and it's fuel that we use in existing plants today. So you know, try not to make too much of a reach, because what we really need to do is we need to demonstrate that we can build something and build it in a way that we can afford it. Right? That's the key step that we have to do in the United States, and not just in the United States, but across the globe. More long-term, or at least mid-term, we are a partner to TerraPower in their natrium reactor, right? So the natrium reactor is based on two different designs. One of them is an old GE design, and we're partnering with them. And if I think about, the way I think about it, people talk about Gen 3 plus reactors and Gen 4 reactors, and I'm gonna get all, you know, jargon laden here, right? Think of them as reactors that are based on water and reactors that are based on anything else, right? Liquid metals and molten salts and all that other stuff. It's not really that exotic when you think about the fact that we built many of them in the 50s and 60s, right? We demonstrated nearly every one of these technologies at some point in time. We just didn't build a bunch of them and operate them for power, largely because the civilian side followed the Navy side. But we're working on that, because the potential advantages for Gen 4 reactors are higher temperatures that can do things other than just generate electricity, right? There's a bunch of things you can do in industrial processes with heat. I won't drag you through all that. And then at the same time, the other thing that my company does is it thinks about and it engages in, you know, how do we make sure we have a good underpinning of research? Do we have test reactors can test the things that we need them to test? something near and dear to my heart. Are we doing what we need to do to educate? You know, I say all the time, if I had two wishes, just two, my two wishes would be people would universally be self-aware, and the other one, which is pertinent here, which is we would do better at education, just generally across the board. I think the pandemic has highlighted that a little bit. Having a couple teenagers in the house during the pandemic, you know, I thought I was pretty plugged into what they were doing in school, and now I am absolutely horrified at how little we are teaching our kids. We gotta do better, right? Because if we're not teaching them enough when they're young, one, you know, they're coming out of high school or going into college or coming out of college, and there's just not enough information in their head. But more importantly, we're not lighting the fire and inspiring them to go further, to learn more, to have a thirst for knowledge. And we have to do better. So again, I'm not working in education, and I'm not trying to imply that we are, but we do spend a lot of time and effort thinking about and working on and trying to do things where we're either training or educating or doing apprenticeships and those kinds of things, because it's important. So that's the boring part of the speech. I'll try to do better here. I wouldn't come into this audience and try to give you a history lesson about anything that pertains to Oak Ridge or anything that pertains to nuclear, right? But here in my adopted second home, which is funny, coming from a New Yorker, this place is just amazing, right? And it's been amazing for a long time. It started with the Manhattan Project and all that was done there, and then all the things that have come since. But as I step back and I look at it, I feel like this Oak Ridge corridor is underutilized. There are things that we have to do to get the maximum benefit out of it, and I'll talk about at least a small part of it, okay? I'll talk about it from my view, my perspective, kind of walk you through, I guess my journey, which, as Alan pointed out, started at Naval Reactors. Before that, when I was in high school, I had a mentor, and I don't know his real name, but we called him Spider, because he was like 8 feet tall, and he had, like, his belt was here, he was legs. And he didn't mind being called Spider. He was like, oh, it's cool, the teenagers like me and think I'm cool. The one thing he said that stuck with me the most was, don't go to college to get a job, right? Which is kind of funny, interesting, and a conversation we're having again now that kids are coming out of college, not getting a job and having $500,000 in loans. But he said, go to college to pursue an interest, which was kind of like a stopper, right? Because at the time, I'm 17 years old, and I was like, interest? You know, I start going through my mind the things that interest me as a 17-year-old, and I was like, well, I don't think you can study those in college. So I don't know how it happened. I think there was a Navy recruiter at something, and the Navy recruiter had, he had a pellet of commercial nuclear fuel. And, you know, he's like, do you want to know what this is? No, not really. Do you want to know what this is? Okay, I'll play along. What is that? This is enough fuel to power, and again, I don't remember the details of how many houses for how long, but I was like, okay. And again, you know, you kind of go back to communications. It didn't resonate until he said, and that would take a pile of coal that would fill up Giant Stadium. I was like, wow. Even if he's exaggerating by, you know, 10 times, 100 times, right? That's impressive. It's impressive enough to learn more. And so we had a conversation, right? Now, I didn't sign up that day to go into the Navy because I was like, I'm not going in the Navy. Who knew? But I did end up eventually going to school to study nuclear engineering, okay? And again, when I was younger, I was smarter than I am now because then I knew everything, and now I don't. People said, don't be a nuclear engineer because that field's dying. It's dead. We're not building nuclear. It's, you know, just a bunch of old guys operating plants until we shut them down. There's nothing to be had there. But I was like, but I'm interested in it. So I went and I studied it, right? And then as I was coming out of college, I was like, wow, you know, there's really good options on this Navy side and not so much on the other side. And so I ended up going into the Navy. Now, I joined the Naval Reactors program, and a lot of people I know in the nuclear business are familiar with naval reactors. They're not known as a friendly bunch, but I grew up in a tough New York neighborhood, so when I got there, I thought, wow, these people were pretty nice. And as a baby engineer egghead right out of college, literally on day one, they said, okay, you're in charge of core manufacturing. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm in charge. You know, I was like, then the realization hits you like, I don't actually know anything. How can I be in charge, right? And so it was actually true. They were like, you're in charge, figure it out. We're here to help you, but figure it out. You know, you got a bunch of people at the 2 laboratories, you got a bunch of folks in the organization, but you know, you're responsible. And when someone needs to go and brief the guy in the corner office who's going to yell at you no matter what you say, you're that guy. So that teaches you a couple of things in addition to engineering and project management, but what a great job, right? And so I stayed there for 20-something years, long enough to retire once from federal government. And there are 3 things I learned fairly quickly. The first one was that, well, there's one overarching theme, and that is that Rickover is still there. You know, much the same way I talked about Senator Alexander and the enduring influence, Admiral Rickover had that enduring influence, right? Now, I think we've learned a lot about how to treat people since then, as the world has changed. But some of the principles about how you do the work and how you make sure you're right and how you just don't screw it up, those came from the very beginning, and it was important because if we hadn't done it then, we wouldn't be where we are today, okay? The first thing that I learned, though, which, again, it was of less interest to me in my first 5 years than in my next 17, was his view that the source of all things good is Capitol Hill, right? He didn't get along well with others in the sandbox, folks in the Navy and the Atomic Energy Act, not necessarily fans of Rickover. They put up with him because they had to and because he succeeded, and just as importantly, because Capitol Hill loved him, okay? He went up there, he told them what was true, what was going to happen. He told them what he could do, what he couldn't do. And when he gave them a deadline and a cost, he delivered, right? That's an important theme, too, as we think about nuclear going forward. He also had something that none of us have ever experienced, which is the Joint Committee on Atomic Energy. So the Joint Committee literally is what it sounds like. It was a House-Senate Joint Committee, and by law, so the Atomic Energy Act of, I want to say 1956, created the Joint Committee on Atomic Energy, and it said, responsible for all matters pertaining to civilian or military application of nuclear power. Now, I think about that for a minute, and I said, wait a minute, how many committees would that be today? Well, it would be the Appropriations Committee, 2 of the subcommittees, at least 2. It would be the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate. It would be the Energy and Commerce in the House. It would be the Environment and Public Works in the Senate. It would be, you know, there's actually about 10 or 12 committees that it would replace with just one committee. And because it was a joint committee, guess what? They didn't have to conference. So they would hold hearings and have meetings and literally write a bill, and that bill would go to the floor in the House and Senate. That's a nice trick. The next best thing in what we have today, I would argue, is appropriations, because we often regard it that if we appropriated something, then, you know, you can go do it, and if we don't, you can't. So, but literally, so Rickover was very, very close to Congress. He kept them apprised of everything he was doing, and he viewed them as partners, which again, there's a lesson in that we should apply today, okay? The second thing I learned was, you know, get the smartest people you can get, and then make sure you train them and teach them, right? And this brings us back to Oak Ridge. The original people, including Rickover himself, were trained here at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So the original school was here. It was a year long, and that's where all of the headquarters staff for naval reactors in the early days were trained. They eventually decided to pull that in-house when they created the Bettis Lab, and now that goes up in Bettis, but Rich lives here in Oak Ridge. So again, you know, you see the theme of this place here is at the origin of all things nuclear. It really is. And then the third one, of course, ties more to my current role. Our first 2 submarines, everyone knows about Nautilus, right? Nautilus went to sea. It was the first submarine nuclear powered. He said at the time it was the first true submarine because it could go under and stay under, you know, all these great things. The second submarine was the Seawolf. The Seawolf had a liquid metal reactor in it. So not all naval reactors were pressurized water reactors. Seawolf had a liquid metal reactor, and if you go back to the reason why, when Rickover decided we're going to put nuclear power in a submarine, he said, okay, where are the titans of industry on nuclear? And at the time, it was Westinghouse and General Electric. So he went first to General Electric, because as I'm told, they were the more savvy of the 2. I'll tell the story, and then you can figure out which one you think is. And he said, I want a pressurized water reactor, and I want it to fit in a submarine. And the General Electric folks said, no, you don't. And he said, yes, I do. He said, no. Now again, Rickover's legacy is such that people didn't tell him no, but General Electric did. And they said, no, you want a liquid metal reactor. There's all these good reasons. It's better in all these ways. And he said, yeah, but I really like water. Nope. So he got mad, yelled at them, and he went to Westinghouse. Westinghouse said, yes, sir, we'll build it. We'll build it right away. And they got to work. He went back to General Electric and said, Westinghouse is building me a pressurized water reactor. Do you want to build one too? He wanted competition always, right? And General Electric said, no, liquid metal. So ultimately, he let them. He let them build a liquid metal plant. And this USS Seawolf had a liquid metal reactor. It went to sea for 20 months. Many of the things he was worried about in terms of its maintenance and what have you, again, right, this is a different era, a different generation of technologies and what have you. But many of the things he was concerned about with that reactor, he said, see, I told you so. He never let General Electric forget it. And then they refueled it with a Nautilus core after 20 months. So I will tell you again, none of these technologies are as new as we think they are. They've been done before, all right? So, as I said, after about 20 years there, I retired. And I took the 3 lessons I just told you about with me. But I went home and I said, okay, I'm going to do something next. And my wife and kids were like, okay, what are you going to do next? I don't know. I'm going to take a couple months and figure it out. So I did. I did a lot of thinking. I took a lot of time off. I smoked a lot of cigars. And they would come, my kids would come home and they would check on me every day, right? So, what did you decide today? I'm like, I'm still thinking about it. Next day, what did you decide? I'm still thinking about it. They're like, it looks like you smoked some cigars. I said, I'm trying out back. I was like, that's my thinking spot, right? So at some point, my wife weighed in and she's like, dude, you got to do something. So I said, all right, well, I've been talking to some people. I'm going to start this consulting firm. And, when I finished up at Naval Reactors, I was no longer doing much technical work. I was doing their political work, their appropriations, contracting and budgeting. And I said, contracting and budgeting is interesting, but what I really enjoy is the political stuff and the strategy stuff. So, I'm going to be my own boss, and that's what I'm going to work on. I called some people, and it wasn't that hard to find some clients who were interested. So I was like, oh, here you go. I'm going to be in business. And then, Alan's told the rest of that story and how I ended up on Capitol Hill. But when that opportunity came, right, I'm applying my good naval reactors training. Capitol Hill's important. Go work on Capitol Hill. It was a no-brainer, right? If you get an opportunity to serve in government and you can serve in a place like the Appropriations Committee where you can work on national security programs and nuclear programs, I mean, that's heaven for anyone. But again, for a nuclear egghead, that is beyond heaven, right? So I did it. I loved every minute of it. Now, when I chose to retire a second time from federal government and leave Capitol Hill, again, I referred back to my naval reactors training. I said, well, where do naval reactors guys go to get trained? I ended up at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. In the short time that I was there, I would sit down with Thomas periodically and say, all right, so, what did you learn? Or what are you working on? Or what are you this? And every time I talked to him, I'd say, well, what I learned is that every time I learned something new that we're working on here, I find 2 more things. So just the week span alone of that laboratory is incredible. And it's not, at the end of the day, it's not about the work, it's not about the facilities, it's the people. And in that short span of a year, I've made some tremendous friends. I've got some relationships that will last the rest of my life. And I truly cherish both the time there, the people that I worked with and met there, and all the work you continue to do, and some of the work we're going to continue to do. Okay, so that's kind of exciting. And then my third takeaway from the naval reactor stuff was, all right, first of all, I thought I was going to work at Oak Ridge till I retired. I honestly believed that. I got calls from a number of companies in the nuclear space who said, hey, why don't you come work for us? And as I did as those calls came in, almost every time I would say, hey, you know what, I'm really happy, I'm in a perfect spot, I'm excited. There was one company that called me that I couldn't say no to, and I at least had to have the conversation. It was General Electric. And the reason for that is, I kind of have an unfair advantage in that working the nuclear portfolio on appropriations means that I know an awful lot about most of the companies that are in the nuclear space, right? So I know, and again, and I have my own opinions, obviously, Everyone says, I'm gonna deliver this thing in 2028 or 2029. I have my own opinions. I won't share them publicly, but, you know, I got a list, and I go, no, that's like a 2035 delivery. That's like a never delivery. That one, we're gonna have fusion plants before that one, right? And as I go down the list, and for some of them, it's just that they're young, smart people with a good idea, and that's important, even if they fail. It's important to have young, smart people working on things and failing, because then they learn and they get back up and they do the next thing, right? For some of them, it's that the companies don't understand the level of rigor that's going to be necessary, okay? For some of them, it's just that, hey, I got to say it's going to deliver in 2028 or 2029, or I won't get the funding so that I can deliver in 2030. I'm like, I'm familiar with that, having worked in government. You know, but as I look across the spectrum, there is one plant that I look at and I say, yeah, that's that one. That's the boring one, right? It's not new technology. It's not a new design. They didn't just shrink it, they shrunk it and simplified it, right? They focused on less dollars per megawatt, not less dollars total. And that's really what we need, right? So I've been to a lot of conferences on nuclear stuff, and we sit around and people say, the problem is cheap natural gas. And you're like, no, that's a good thing. That's not a problem, right? Because my house runs on natural gas. Cheap natural gas is a good thing. The problem is we've made it too expensive over time, right? And then instead of working our way out of that, we just blame the NRC because that's convenient. That doesn't work, right? So it's really about, let's design something that can be built and can be built affordably. And then let's motor through and build it, and let's manage it. And manage it with, you know, a wee bit of realism and a wee bit of honesty to make sure that we know where the landmines are. So, let's see. I think I've touched all the things on that page. How am I doing on time? All right, I'm going to wrap up here soon. I go back to the one thing I've said 100 times in every speech I've given for the last 5-6 years, and that is, if I had just, you know, I had those 2 rules earlier, those are for humans and mankind. If I had one rule for nuclear power, it would be this: let's stop talking and let's start doing it, right? We have to put shovels in the ground and we have to build, because we need new generation. And we need new generation that's in a time frame that will impact climate, okay? I know that every time the Secretary of Energy goes somewhere and people say, here are my climate plans, she says, well, but yeah, what can you do by 2030? You know, and if you give her a plan that says 2030, I suspect she might say, yeah, but what can you do by 2025, okay? You know, it's important that we be mindful of the timeframes and that we deal with it with the urgency that it demands and that it requires. But at the same time, we've got to be honest about what we can deliver and what we can't. The biggest challenge I think that we have as technical people, if you follow over history, is we do really great stuff and then sometimes we exaggerate what the potential is. And then what happens is, you know, we say we're going to give you 100 and then we give you 90 and you're disappointed because you got 10 less than you should have. But if we had told you you were going to get 85 and we delivered you 90, you'd be ecstatic, right? And so we need to be honest about what we can do. I'm going to leave with one thought at the very end here. You know, I've told you already, our plant is really basic. It's licensable, it's buildable, what have you. I'm not going to make any predictions, but I'm going to quote somebody that lives here in Tennessee in a large mansion and had a speech recently. He said, if we're going to have a real conversation about energy in America, it needs to be safe, cheap to produce, and reliable. I believe the conversation starts right here in Tennessee at the Clinch River site. I think Governor Lee is right. I really do. I think the important thing for us to remember is it's not a good time for us to pat ourselves on the back and talk about the great stuff we're doing. It's time for us to buckle up and get the work done. We're at the beginning, not the end. You know, again, my company just won a big award in Ontario. We are going to build a reactor there, and it's going to be operational in 2028. The license application will go to the Canadian NRC basically this year. Even though it's pretty simple, straightforward, and something that's been seen before, we're not taking a shortcut plan for how long it's going to get licensed. We're saying full 3 years. We have a construction plan that says we're going to build it in 3 years. And it's achievable because the way we're building it is different. You know, if any of you have seen the work we're doing over at Y12 to build UPF, you know, we peel away half of the earth and then replace it with engineered backfill, nuclear quality welded steel and then concrete. That's the way you have to do large facilities like that. It's not the way you have to do small reactors if you're smart. So we're looking forward to continuing to do the work. Everything I talked about here today is an extension of the vision of Senator Alexander. It really is. He has given a much more elegant version of this speech than I have at least 100 times, probably more than that, okay? He's talked in addition about the Oak Ridge corridor, right? We know the history of this place and what it has to offer. And again, I would submit to you, it is underutilized. Now is the time. So, thank you.
The last thing, right? The last, I don't know if we'll give you a bill. So there's a couple things in here. You're a military guy.
I am.
The Bastard Brigade is a book written by Sam King, who came here. It's a story about a group of bastards who went around Europe disrupting the German effort to build a bomb. Cool book. One.
Thank you.
Two, you need your atomic workers.
Thank you.
Because you've done a yeoman's work in that field for many years. And three, we think you're going to come back, so we're going to give you what every Navy person needs.
Yeah, I actually would love to read it. I've had enough dinner and drinks with you. I know this fits. Okay.
15 minutes with a partner.
Yeah, thanks.
So now we move into the other fun part of this day, and that is where we get to honor some very special people. A little bit of a twist, as always happens in these things, but we'll be doing a few of them today, and we'll do a few more later this year to honor these people. But we're going to start out with Pat Postma and her friends doing some Postma Medal presentation.
I can't wait to see if I get some beer when I'm done. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. I always go away from these ETEC annual meetings with such a good feeling. The buzz in the room, and particularly this year, since it's been so long since we've all been together. It's just such an upbeat event with so many productive and exciting people. So thank you for making this part of the program. And Adam, thank you for talking about education. It's discouraging to think we're not teaching our kids that it's fun to learn, because it really is fun. And I can tell you, as you get older, it's really useful too. So there's more and more to learn, and you got to keep up with the younger generation. Having spent my entire life in Oak Ridge, I am truly appreciative of our legacy in the beginnings. The Army built the workplaces and the houses, but it was the people that built the community. In 1943, the folks here, and many of them were scientists, started an orchestra, or started the Playhouse, the Oak Ridge Playhouse. And in 1944, they started an orchestra. In 1973, in an unused school, some determined people started a children's museum in one room. That's an Oak Ridge treasure right now. These, and probably everything else good that goes on there, happened because some individuals, like the people in this room, felt like they should be here and they cared enough to make it happen. There is no good region or no good town or great town even that doesn't have people who care. The Young Professionals Medal was created in 2005 to recognize two critical aspects that are essential to having our region and our town of Oak Ridge be the best that it can be. One of those is outstanding professional skills and achievements, and the other of those is inspired and inspiring community engagement. The Young Professionals Medal is meant to recognize in the early stages of their career individuals that bring both of those in one package. Whether it was Tom Mason in 2005 or Rebecca Crow in 2012 or Red Spears in 2019, this medal has been given to people in a diverse set of professions and people with a diverse set of engagement in the community. They are effective, they are movers, they're passionate, they make things happen, and they are our future. So it's an honor to be able to recognize those folks and to get up here and support them and recognize them. We have two winners of the Young Professional Medal this year. One of those could not be here today, and we do, however, have a video of the surprise presentation this person got. And in that presentation, which we'll show shortly, Naomi Asher, who was our 2018 winner, will introduce this year's winner. And when the video is through, Leah Witt will come forward and introduce our second winner. So let's see who that is. And thank you to our winners. Thank you to those who nominated them. And thank you for being here today.
Hello, Megan. Good afternoon.
Nice to see you. It's been a while, Jim.
It has been a while, and we must start out by saying that we have deceived and that we are apologetic about that, just a little bit apologetic, but not a whole lot apologetic. 20 years or so ago, our organization got together and started talking about what we needed to do to keep young people engaged and working in Tennessee. Yeah, you've got a lot of friends. One of the things that we decided to do was was to make sure young people got to meet the Postmas. And Pat is here today to talk about the thing that we created at that point in time. Pat, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Right. Megan, I'm delighted to meet you, and you are very important to our future. I have spent virtually my whole life in Oak Ridge and truly appreciate the legacy of our beginnings. The Army, of course, built the buildings and the workplaces and the housing, but it was the people who built this community. The Oak Ridge Playhouse started in 1943. The orchestra started a year after that. All of these community sponsored, and they are still here today and they excel. I think about the Children's Museum, which started because of the determination of a few people in one room of a school that was unused, and it's a community treasure today. That and everything else good that happens because people like you and like me and the other people in this room believe it should happen, and they go and get going and make it happen. Great towns cannot exist unless there are people who care. The medal that ETEC created in 2005 recognizes two critical aspects that we need to create the best Oak Ridge. One of those is outstanding professional skills and achievements, and the other is inspired community involvement. The Young Professionals Medal celebrates people who bring both of those in one package, and that's you. From Tom Mason, who got the first medal in 2005, to Rebecca Crow in 2012, and Brad Spears in 2019, we've recognized a diversity of professions and a diversity of community contributions. These people and the work they do in their day jobs are creating our future. And in our community, our best future depends on people like you. As one of the two recipients for 2021, we salute you today, and we support what you're doing and what you're doing in our community. You are making an impact in both those ways. Naomi Asher was our winner in 2018, and I'm delighted to ask Naomi to tell us a little more about you.
Megan, it's such an honor to be here today, talking about all of your many accomplishments. So you have been at CNS for a long time, over 11 years, I believe, and have been involved in all kinds of different things there, in many different positions. And one thing is consistent that everybody has said, and that is that you always do over and above what it is that you are being asked to do. You consistently knock it out of the park and throw yourself into everything 100%. From the community side, I can definitely attest to that. From the Children's Museum board, your experience with Leadership Oak Ridge, your work with Women in Nuclear and Introduce a Girl to Engineering. All of these organizations you have thrown yourself into 100%. When you were asked to come onto the United Way board, I don't know if you knew you were pregnant yet. I don't think we knew yet, but even through that, you said yes. And not only said yes, but I don't even know if you took a break at all for your maternity leave as far as those commitments went. It was just there 100% and consistent and helping and jumping in. That detail oriented, several people have agreed with this, that when there's anything wrong, any typo or number or decimal in the wrong place, boy, you're going to catch it and ask those questions and make sure that we're all on the top of our game. And not only that, but following through to make sure that there were no deeper issues and doing the work as well as just pointing out what the concerns might be. So it is a joy to have you in this community. Our nonprofits are so much better and stronger because you are so involved. It is just a thrill to be able to award you with this today. So congratulations, Megan.
Bravo.
Thank you so much, Pat, and thank you, Naomi, my husband, Greg, for coming.
Yay.
This is fantastic. And Pat, it's you. Thank you, guys. This is such an honor. We use the ETEC building all the time for our continuous improvement classes. And I get to look at that wall and be inspired by all of the people who have won this award and think, man, they've done some awesome stuff in the community. And honestly, it's hard to put myself in comparison with them. Just so many people who are on the board who show such huge altruism for our people, for our community, and it's such an honor. Thank you so much for nominating, to those who nominated me and for the committee who chose me. This is incredibly exciting. So thank you very much.
congratulations to Megan, even though she couldn't be here. I'm so glad we got to honor her in that way. It is great to be here today, especially with Pat, to get to help with one of these award presentations. When you've been on the other side of that, you know how exciting it is, the surprise factors. It's just one of the best parts of this event, I think, is getting a chance to do this. We've heard about how the honorees are making a difference in our companies and our communities, and I think that the Postman Medal winners just take that to the next level. Our next honoree is someone who's found a way to blend their passion and their expertise into an outstanding career, which also seems to be a common denominator with the Postman Medal winners. You know, we've heard that people make changes in their job and take leaps into other things that turn out to be a tremendous career growth opportunity for them, and this person is no exception. After graduating from UT and having immediate impacts, first through Teach for America, and then later in their hometown of Jefferson County as a high school biology teacher, the person then began to expand their passion and dedication to K-12 students and STEM education outreach across the region when they joined ORAU, first as a subcontracted teacher and then as part of our program staff. I've had the privilege to know this person for several years. First, during my time at ORNL, we interacted on things like the Tennessee Science Bowl. And I can promise you will not get out of this room today if this person has anything to do with it without being given a chance to volunteer at the upcoming event. Shortly after I joined ORAU, I had a chance to become the group manager for the K-12 outreach team. And for the last 2 years, I have worked so closely with this person every single day, and I'm continually blown away by their just endless enthusiasm, ideas, and passion. This person dedicates countless hours to students and teachers across not just East Tennessee, but across the country. Meanwhile, serving on boards for the Southern Appalachian Science and Engineering Fair, the Children's Museum of Oak Ridge, and the Oak Ridge School STEM Committee. Lastly, one of the things I'm really excited about this personally is that we're going to have something in common, because this person was also selected very recently in the Knoxville 40 under 40, and winning this award now back to back is a really special recognition. And if you don't know I'm talking about Jennifer Tyrell, please come forward and accept this award. I'm completely shocked right now and surprised, which is really exciting. Thank you all. Thank you for nominating me and selecting me. And I'm so thrilled to be here today to hear you speak about education and how important that is, because education really is my passion. It's what I have made my career and my personal mission. So absolutely, I'll talk to all of you about volunteering for the Tennessee Science Bowl or any other way that we can get you involved in educating our students and creating a really strong future workforce. Thank you all so much.
Well, good morning, everybody. Sure is good to see so many people we haven't seen in 2 years. It's great that you take the time to do this. And it's been so long since I've been behind the microphone, I don't quite know what to do. Muddle through. I've got an opportunity here to announce a presentation that has been made already. But Pat, I'd kind of like to follow that theme that you had about the community. And this is a story about one of our workplace people who cared a lot about the community. As we all know, at the DOE facilities, our managers and our workers go to great lengths to keep the workforce safe and healthy. This story is about a person who cared a lot about the community. I'm going to tell one piece of what he did and how much energy he put into it in order to make sure that the Oak Ridge community was safe, not just the DOE facilities. So it's my pleasure to introduce a video, which we have to do in this case, of an event that we had on January the 19th to present the Muddy Boot Award to Steve McCracken. Steve McCracken is a former manager of the DOE Oak Ridge Environmental Management Program. Steve served DOE for many, many years at multiple sites, including an extensive time in Oak Ridge, which is his birthplace. Steve had many accomplishments that deserve the Muddy Boot. But there's one project that I believe needs to be called out to show how much effort he put into assuring that the job we were doing at ETTP could be completed and it could be done safely without impacting on the community. And I won't call out all these other projects, but the one that he did work on was the Hall Road. And if you remember, it possibly is the single most important project that he worked on, to be honest with you. It allowed UCOR to complete the project of demolishing that entire complex, that Grand Enrichment complex, and it kept the community safe. The project was Steve's idea. He championed it. He fought for it when most other people didn't believe in it. That project was the Hall Road that connected ETTP to the waste cell. When we started the cleanup and demolition of ETTP many years ago, Steve recognized that the hundreds of thousands of heavy trucks hauling contaminated demolition debris could not be safely transported on public roads. Our experience with DUF 6 cylinders, for those of you who remember that, the transportation of those things on public roads told us that we had potential problems that could occur, and even one significant major incident could shut the whole cleanup job down out at K-25. Funding for the road on DOE property was not in the budget, and many did not believe it was needed. It was a battle to get the necessary funding, but we finally succeeded, and Steve built this Hall Road. He did it for two reasons. One is to enable the final demolition of all of the K-25 site, and secondly, to keep the community safe by not putting this stuff on public roads. So for many years, ETTP demolition debris was transported to the disposal cell with no accidents, no harm to the public or the environment. UCOR completed the demolition in 2021. Ken Reuter, president of UCOR, told Steve in the ceremony on January 19th that he calculated that hundreds of thousands of heavy trucks travel approximately 7 million miles on that road. For perspective, a round trip to the moon is 1/2 million miles. Without Steve's foresight, constant support, and dogged determination to ensure safe transport of the material, ETTP would likely not be finished today. The Hall Road was one of the many projects Steve championed over his career, but it was this one, coming from Steve's practical mind, skilled project management experience, that we celebrated on January 19th. Steve has ALS, not able to be here with us today, but if I could speak for him, I would say that he really appreciates and is touched greatly by the recognition of the work that he did. One more honor was bestowed on him that day. In addition to the boot from ETEC, Laura Wilkerson, and others at DOE have named the Hall Road Bridge across Highway 95 the McCracken Bridge. Jim, Tracy, Nicole, we want to thank you and ETEC for making this award possible. Mark Ellison, who is here with us this morning, is the one who presented the Muddy Boot Award to Steve, and on January 19th. And we've got a video of that, so let's watch the video.
Steve, I just wanted to tee this up by just covering a little bit of your career background. So you were born.
Good stuff, I hope.
Yeah, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. You still live in Oak Ridge. You're here with your wife Debbie, who's here, and your two daughters, Brooke and Sarah. Went to University of Tennessee. Started your career as a civil, structural, and architectural engineer for Catalytic Inc. in North Carolina, where you worked as a design engineer and then you worked a group leader. You then moved on to Department of Energy in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. There you worked within the engineering construction division, and you started working on cleanup projects. And you started working on small but politically charged projects in various states, and we started to see a theme starting to develop. So your next assignment was a project manager for Department of Energy at Weldon Springs. You started off as the deputy project manager, working your way to become the manager in 1989. So this established you as a leader and a manager of complex, large environmental cleanup programs, something else that we're going to see more of. So it was a complex site. It was the first site to be listed on the DOE, the EPA's National Priority List. You had to work with all the stakeholders, including EPA, the state, the community, and you personally engage with the community in every possible setting to make sure that their expectations were met. During the course of the work, the site was awarded OSHA's Volunteer Protection Program Recognition for Safety. And in 2001, the Association of Geologists give this project their Outstanding Environmental Engineering Project of the Year. And also, it was the first DOE site closure. And this was years ahead of any end state closure or any other site being closed. So you did the very first one. Your next assignment was at Fernald. So you were responsible for all aspects of this multi-billion-dollar cleanup. Again, working with stakeholder groups, the media. Fernald was heavily influenced by local activist groups who had direct access to the White House and many points in between. And this made community relations so important. You worked with the community. You engaged in monthly meetings, you worked with the residents, and the project was completed to everyone's satisfaction. And you achieved DOE's second site closure. It's in the theme, Tom. So your next assignment was US Department of Energy, Assistant Manager for Environmental Manager at Oak Ridge. You were responsible for all environmental cleanup work at the Oak Ridge Reservation at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The work included D&D of large industrial facilities. You were responsible for every aspect of the work: safety, scope, cost, schedule, community relationships. And one of your, achievements was the whole road. Something that was critically important to achieving clean up at Oak Ridge. And we're going to hear a little bit more about the whole road from Ken and Laura in a little bit. So your next assignment was with TVA. You were the general manager for the Kingston Ash Recovery Project. Under your leadership, that was successfully transitioned from an emergency into a disciplined, focused project with a defined course of action. And again, in February 12, that was awarded with the TVA President's highest honour for work done for the time period that you were there.
Can I throw a bone to Bob Deasty, because he's the fellow that sat on the other end of the trailer with me and let us get our job done. And if it hadn't been for him, we'd still be out there.
So from 2015, 2016, you were a technical advisor, again, working for, as an advisor to EM2 and the Office of Tank Waste and Nuclear Material. And then I'm glad to say in 2016, you joined Jacobs as an engineering program manager. Still to this day, you serve as a program manager and technical advisor for government programs. And one of the jobs you did there was leading the process facility build-out project for DOE, EM, and you turned that project into the success that it is today. So the common theme there is, say, wherever you went, you made a difference. You know, you closed 2 sites, you were critically enabler for the 3rd one at Oak Ridge. You just made such a huge contribution to everywhere that you worked, including Oak Ridge. So to recognise that achievement, I'm so pleased, proud and honoured to present you with your very own Muddy Boot Award 2021. And as that sinks in, I've done you a plaque, and this plaque shows all the previous Muddy Boot Award winners. So just to put it into perspective, your name is up here and it'll be up in the ETEC building with senators, congressmen, company presidents, newspapers, and your name. I mean, even Jenny Freeman's name's on there. And your name will be up there too.
Wow, I would have never figured that. That's very nice of you. And you know, this was all about you all and how good everybody was at pulling together to get stuff done, wasn't it? I mean, you know, it really was. And I don't think I've ever worked with a group of people at any of these places that didn't have, you know, we started Weldon Springs and none of us knew what the hell we were doing, but we figured it out after. But everybody, that's just everybody I've worked with has been such a pleasure, and then without you, I think where we'd be. I mean, it was just really, really the best career anybody could hope to have.
Oh, great, congratulations. At this point, we have 2 more Muddy Boot Award winners. They are unable to be here. We are still in a pandemic, believe it or not, and we will continue this celebration and have an event for those. Is that right, Jim? That's right. Thank you.
I want to take just a couple of minutes for us to give some appreciation to Buddy Hines and the leadership that he's given to ETEC over the last year. We've all been in this environment where we've done things fully virtual, we've been hybrid, we've been in person, and he's had to do all of that as we've kept ETEC up and running throughout the pandemic, and even having the hybrid audience with people in the room at ETEC and online. Somebody said it's like he's had a live TV audience to deal with while we're trying to run a meeting too, but he's done it. He's done it with a smile and his humor, and I really appreciated having a chance to work with him. I'm not sure if the combination of being him together made Jim want to just retire now. That's about, but Buddy, thank you so much.
There's no beer in here. Adam, you left yours here. You mind if we split that? Hey, a couple of cleanup items here. Since the early 90s, there's been a new chair of ETEC every year. We've had some great ones that are no longer with us. Herman Postma, Ben Adams, Nat Revis, Pete Craven, and Joe Leonard there. And they were some great personalities, and we all miss them. Had a lot of great chairs, and Nat Revis started this tradition of handing off the bell. We're going to do that, and says here that if you're a past chair, we'd like for you to stand up real quick. I see Chris, Alan, Sherry, Kathy. Here are a few more. Eric, there's who is that, man? Tom, yeah. Let's see. Mary,
Take the gloves off my hand.
I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to look at that list and go, holy smoke, how in the world did they ask me? And I told Kendall when he asked me, I said, the only thing I've ever done is kind of attended regularly. And he goes, that's it. So that was a low bar. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So as we wrap up, Adam, I want to come back to something that you said, and it's this place is amazing. And everything that you've heard from your experiences, our award and honorees today, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think that's what we need to take into 2022. We've been through a lot in the last couple of years, but it's opportunity. Whether nuclear, advanced manufacturing, electrification of the automotive grid, I mean, our region is bursting with opportunity. And the partnerships and the collaboration that happens here is unique. And I think we're very, very fortunate to be here, to have all of you here today. Thank you for coming. I want to thank Adam for being here, for giving great remarks. Enjoy your Miller Lite. Hope you don't find somebody to have to share that with if we want to take 15 minutes. But do want to also thank Jim Henry for being here. We're planning to make a presentation. So Jim, thank you for being here with us today. Again, congratulations to our honorees. Thank you to our sponsors. I look forward to having a great year with you. We're adjourned.